Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Phil and Sam for another spoiler discussion on Andor. And this is, of course, episode 9, not The Rise of Skywalker, but Andor episode 9. And I can't wait to get into this. It's been a very long day. I didn't get to see this all very late. Dave's not with us tonight. Dave is watching it, I believe, as we speak, so I'm excited to get his thoughts after. But before we get into any of that kind of stuff, how are we both doing tonight?
Been better, been worse, as you well know. However, I'm really excited to talk about this. I had to miss last week's episode due to personal reasons. However, it gives me a lot more to talk about this week because, I saw this episode earlier today. I've only seen it the once, I had the chance to see it the once, but oh boy, we'll get into the movie in a minute. But I'm chomping at the bit to talk about it.
Yeah, It's been it feels like so long since I was last on it. It was only a few weeks ago, but I basically did 1, 2, 3, then got ill and was away. So that's why I've not been able to take part in so long. However, happy to be back. Along with Phil, there's a lot to say. To say that, we'll talk a bit more about it later, but there's so much going on yet. It's not super in your face. We're not bombarded with so much content, which is great. We've really been allowed to see the story develop. And this is just another great episode.
No, and that's it, another great episode. And we have a wealth of great episodes. And we've never been able to say that with Star Wars. And I don't mean it as a pot shot at any of the shows. I keep calling it prestige TV. This is a new form of Star Wars, isn't it? What the series has been so far, and what I hope sticks with for the next year and so for when they finish filming. However, we want to hear from everybody watching at home, so please do comment below your thoughts on Andor. As we said, this is a spoiler discussion. Go through anything you want, your theories, what might happen in the next episodes, what you think's been happening. Have you enjoyed the series? Have you not? Please do comment, let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts on them. If you're watching it live, put it in the chat. We'll bring them up. If you're watching on demand, we will reply to the comments as well, so you can check them out on there. And if you like this video, Andor's not going to be going away anytime soon. Neither Star Wars, in fact. We chatted to Phil earlier. 5 months until Star Wars Celebration. 5 months and maybe 5 days or something. But it's creeping up. Us three will all be there. Dave will be there. Many people who've seen our channel are going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of people flying in and out from other countries, so we're going to be able to see some friends I've not seen in a few years. And yeah, it's exciting. It's a very exciting time to be a fan of Star Wars. And if you're curious about more Star Wars videos down the line, what we might do, we tend to announce them on our social medias alongside any of the videos on the channel. That's Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and Letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy, and a link to Redbubble in that description below. Sam, I'm going to jump to you first, not without skipping Phil. Obviously, Sam, we didn't have you on past episode 3. Just very quickly, I'd love to know your thoughts on maybe like episodes 4 to 6, the sort of second story arc, and very briefly on last week, because it's quite nice to get you back on. And it hasn't been Sam's hate of the series. He's not been on people. You've been busy. There's been a lot of Bond stuff. You've been ill.
Yeah.
Wow. It's nice to get you back on.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it has been. I mean, I've never felt so wanted in my life. Let's put it that way. I mean, I've done a lot of the Bond events. There's been a lot of work stuff and social events, and then I got the flu. So it's just kind of been a bit of a whirlwind 6 weeks, really. Basically since the beginning of September, if I'm being honest. But no, I guess the second arc of this show is probably. I mean, I will say that the Aldani stuff, I did enjoy it. However, there were times where I kind of did get a little bit bored with it. I'm not going to lie. I think I was kind of ready for the heist to kind of get underway sooner than it did. But I guess, and I know logically there was more character development to be had, a lot to learn. And to kind of get those different perspectives and point of views, which the show does very well in kind of seeing kind of each person's side that's within the story, which is excellent. I mean, I've got to give it up for my person, my Mum Mothma. Honestly, I mean, if anyone who saw the initial spoiler stuff and knows that I was super excited for her character and just Coruscant to be part of the show, and so to actually have such extended scenes and time there has truly been like one of the best things about this. And I've got to say, it's probably my favorite bit of the show. As much as I'm loving what's happening with Cassian, and especially what's happened in these recent episodes, to see kind of this kind of middle ground of and this censorship and this discretion to try and do something yet hide away and have two faces, I think is just super intriguing. And to see it in a place that we think we know so well, yeah, it just seems off, and you can feel that vibe. And I feel for the character of Mon Mothma. I applaud her character for what she's trying to do, and she's so teetering on a tightrope here. Anything could slip her up, and you seems intense, and that's what I will applaud this show for is that giving us such intense scenes. There's a lot of them in here, and this I really think helps it, feel more more prestigious, I should say. It could very much just be action packed and just we have the odd quiet scene, and then it's all guns blazing. And many of the other shows have had to do that because of the run times and episodes that we've got. But we've got at least we've got 2 seasons of this. We've got 12 episodes in this series. And so, yeah, it's nice to kind of see these stories slowly develop and see these and have us learn more about these characters. And so it's been nice, especially kind of like for these past couple of episodes of Lies, to get back some of the characters that we saw initially and just kind of see where we're going with this. And I think we're at a really interesting spot now where everything's more heightened, and you see this slow build up of things that happen in this momentum now. And I just want to see it keep coming, and I'm scared that we're going to get to episode 12. It's going to end, and I'm just going to be like, get the second season out now. Like, we need it now. I feel like, I'll love it if they do a big, massive cliffhanger. We love them, but it's going to keep me on the edge of my seat for a long time. But yeah, enjoying the series, having a great time, some fantastic characters and scenery. And yeah, I just want to keep going. I can't believe we are at episode 9. It has gone so quickly. But yeah, I think that's the overall roundup so far for me.
That's excellent. It's glad to get you caught up with it as well. And just over to you quickly, Phil. Very quickly, because we did everyone last week, thoughts on episode 8. I know we're going to probably talk about it a little more because obviously we've got, we're on part 2 of a 3-part act, but just quickly your thoughts on how last week went as well. And also Andy Serkis popping up. We're going to speak about it in a bit, but I want to know how you thought.
Yeah, I'll get to Andy Serkis in a second because he was one of 2 very pleasant surprises for me in this arc. The other one being Melshi, who I'm very interested to see how they're going to get him involved. I didn't pick up on it the first time I watched it. I'm not going to lie. So I wasn't on last week, personal reasons I'm not going to get into. But I really enjoyed last week's episode. The first 2 arcs, I do agree with you a little bit, Sam, in terms of the Aldani stuff did drag a little, but it was all for a purpose. So unlike other bits and pieces where it drags because they've got a space to fill out, this was a very purposeful story beat. So I was okay with all that. But no, last week's episode into this week's was fascinating. It was cool to see that the Shore Troopers back. It was cool to see Cassian's very unfortunate demise rather quickly, but seeing more of the ISB, seeing the prison, seeing more of the Empire as they should be, which is feared, which then you go into this week's episode, which then gives you that proper dark sense. And we'll talk about that as we get into it later on. But no, seeing Andy Serkis pop up was a very pleasant surprise, partly because he's a fantastic actor. You take away all the stuff he's known for in terms of the mocap and everything else, you look at him just as a performing actor, he still has incredible range. So to see him these days without either some sort of costume or mocap is rare, but that doesn't detract from who he was. This is Claude, for example, in the Marvel Universe, no CG there, still does an incredible job at the beginning of Black Panther, which I'll quickly plug. I know that there'll probably be a review on this channel for Black Panther 2 at some point. Go watch it because I know the guys here will love it. Anyway, not the point. Last week's episode I thought was fantastic. Really good build up to where we are for this week's, and it so far has been my favorite arc. Not because of anything big. In the first episode, of course, you had it all build up to the showdown and escape from Ferrex, setting up with Cyril and everything else. So the first 3 episodes were really good. They were set up, and it was nice. We had those 3 back to back to back. The Aldani stuff was the character's now gone here, next big heist. This is what it's been known for. Now it's being set up to be taken out, as we know, by Val and by Luthen. It's really set. Now we're getting the show's really getting into its stride. And we had a wonderful episode for episode 7, which of course was that filler episode that wasn't filler at all. We had a really big old conversation about that. So yeah, for me, last week's episode was a fantastic setup to where we are now. And I don't want to say too much because we're going to cover it all over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. But honestly, last week's blew my mind, and this just tops it even further.
Yeah, for me, we're kind of in this rich vein where the beauty of TV, and I know I've said it before, is we get to spend time in spend time with characters in locations that you just wouldn't have the luxury of spending time with if it was a film. And I think this show's really benefited from that. I use the phrase, so I'm a hypocrite, but and like I got buzzing with Kenobi, right? It's like a 6-hour film, and I view it as that. And you get a lot of people that hate the term TV shouldn't be a 6-hour film. TV is TV. It's a different spectrum. And this is, to me, the first show. I know Mando feels very like traditional Saturday morning TV is like new episode every week, not in a disrespectful term, just in a it's a very specific chapter 1 new adventure, chapter 2 new adventure. This is the first time I thought Star Wars has a long form TV series that is. It feels like it's a TV series. It's just incredible. And last week we spoke about the George Lucas stuff with the whole THX one. Sam, actually, no, you watched that recently. Actually, I noticed that on your Instagram. I'm going to jump to you again quickly. Your thoughts on THX 113? Now, I've never seen it. I'm going to hold my hands up. I'm not going to lie. I've only seen clips of it. But how was that? And then seeing this episode and last week?
Okay, well, this is rather embarrassing. So I had started watching THX 1138, and I had had a couple of drinks, and I fell asleep like half an hour in. So I woke up and the film was finished. So I do need to go and actually, watch it properly, because it wasn't disinteresting. I didn't fall asleep because I was bored. I was laid down and just fell asleep. But from what I did see, because I knew I hadn't seen the episode, so that the reason why I wanted to watch the film is because I've known about it forever, but it's never been accessible easily. And then I thought, oh, it's probably on Prime, which it was. Obviously, having to rent it to buy, but it was there. And because I hadn't seen episode 7 or episode 8, so I actually watched those 2 episodes yesterday. And so I thought I'll watch THX before episode 8, because I'd seen people reference it and say, oh, there's a lot of this influence here. I thought I'll watch that first and then I can gauge my own opinion on that. But obviously from a visual standpoint, of course, it's very clean. It's very, you just get that vibe. I mean, if everyone had shaved heads, it would be completely different. And it'd be like, well, this is a bit too on the nose here. But I think it's great to see how, stories and beats from, not just cinema, but something that's specific to George Lucas, which I'm sure, was a great influence to, many people, is then utilized and used in a different way. And it totally fits with the Empire and what they would do. Like, it didn't seem like, oh, this is just ripping off that for the sake of it. It fits within the story and with what I believe the Empire would do and what it could kind of look like. So I think the way that they've done it in Andor is very interesting in terms of their use of punishment and what they're getting people to do and ultimately what's happening in this place. But no, I think in terms of like psychologically, I definitely think there's a massive, massive influence there, and it'll be interesting I think I would definitely say, based on the half an hour that I did see, other people should watch it, because I think it's so weird. There's not a lot of dialogue. It's very much, based on the look and the movements and the vibes that are going on, the sounds, which is not here. There's a lot of dialogue in this. There's a lot of use of music and what's going on. But even with what's his name? It's is it Tarja? Like I think the character, the one who's using his hands and doing signals.
Yeah, Tarja,
Tarja. Thank you. Yeah, it's it's things like that which I'm like, oh, this is making this more interesting. How you communicate with people when you're in a prison like that, when you're like in that place. So there's definitely those vibes there, but it's not too on the nose, which I'm thankful for, because we wouldn't want a complete rip off. But yeah, I would recommend other people to watch it, and I will finish watching THX.
No, that's great. I'm glad that popped in mind actually, because I saw that last week, and in fitting with that, I found a tweet that's quite funny. Someone put, I find it very funny that the $5,000 Star Wars hotel looks way more reminiscent of the dystopian prison in Andor than anything else in Star Wars. And they've got a couple of photos. Okay,
Oh my God.
on my phone, but it legitimately looks like the prison from Star Wars.
Was on the Halcyon Legacy?
It is.
Jeez.
It is the one. 5K, 3 nights. Apparently, the beds are tiny and uncomfortable. But all the PR people that got sent there loved it, which you would do if you'd have to pay, because I'd be the same.
Really? PR people loved it?
I'm jealous. Listen, Lucasfilm, if you want to invite me to the hotel, send me there. But I can't afford it right now, and so can probably not many people. But if we start getting into this, what we'll do, people at home, we'll start going into it the way we often do. We'll do it, I say, by location. We're going to talk by subplot more than anything. So we've got the interrogation scene. We're revisiting our pal Cyril, Phil's best mate. And then we've got some Senator Mon Mothma talk. Then we're going to head back to prison. And we can get an excellent chat on what is just, to me, phenomenal storytelling. But we go right to the beginning of the episode. Now, I'm going to just make the obvious. I still don't know everyone's character names. It's going to take me a while. But we get introduced to another new one with the Doctor at some point. There's 2 Doctors in today's episode. But I want to talk about the big stuff, because Sam, you mentioned it was nice us sort of catching up with some of the characters previously. I completely forgot last week that they'd arrested Bix. Not disrespecting the episode. Again, I've only seen it once. I'm being quite patient with the show. I want to rewatch the whole thing once it's finished, which I think is going to be really exciting to do. But I loved this interrogation because for the first time in... I don't want this to be an age thing, and again, it's not me dissing on other stuff, but for the first time, the Empire actually felt like an evil Empire. Is that horrible to say?
No, they actually felt scary, which is what they need to be.
Because most of the time it's very mustache twirling, which I love. I love that sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong. Love myself a director Krennic. Right, but love a Tarkin.
It's the comparison for the age demographic. This is aimed at an older audience. Therefore, the Empire can be that scarier, more violent place it needs to be. Yeah, I mean, you got the ISB. We haven't talked about it as a location. We'll get onto that later. Yes. But the Empire, it's oppression.
It's a regime. It's fascism, and sorry, I almost said it's incredible. Fascism isn't incredible, but the storytelling in Andor is incredible. But I just love this interrogation scene, because even the long monologues that Dedra Miro, who I think's been one of the standouts of the series, has this horrific monologue, then followed up by the weird doctor guy, and then you find out that they've actually sourced the info out of her, which is great. That horrible head beam Ready Player One headset thing. But sorry, we've got a quick comment by Dave. Well, it looks like Dave's finished the episode. How many guys next level? Never any more than 12. Superb. It is excellent TV. We'll get to that a little bit later. But how do we feel with that opening? Again, I know that it's not really an in-depth thing to talk about the opening, but obviously, if we stick with Dedra's storyline, and as you said, Phil, goes to ISB as well, it's quickly becoming some of my favorite scenes of Star Wars. And I think the reason for this, we're getting fantastic performances by the actors. No one has been miscast in this series. I'm not comparing it to other shows, but often I'll take a pot shot of the Mando, right? And it's like, here come the SNL cameos. I love the fact that in this series, it's not just the fact there's no cameos. Every role feels like it's a new character, and every character feels like they belong in this series. And the writing of every single character is so unique to themselves. It's just captivating TV. And there's no problem with it, but it makes it harder to do videos like this, because I can't really add much more to excellent monologues and in-depth character pieces. I can't sit here reciting my favorite quote or whatnot, but we had that trailer line, are you a fish or are you a thief, finally used. But I'm really intrigued to see where the setup with Bix is going to go, because I definitely don't think we're done with that planet yet. I think we will return there in the final couple of episodes. But I just love all the ISB stuff. I just think it's something new, not in the respect of Star Wars. I know, Phil, you expanded the universe, you'll know a lot more than me. You'll know a lot more than others. But visually, for people that are casual viewers, people that don't watch videos like these on YouTube, for the people that are just watching because it's a new series, or they might hear good things about a new series, they're probably looking at us thinking wow, what is this place? This is incredible. And I just think the storyline with the Empire, I'm really enjoying following in a sort of psychotic way that again, the beauty of TV is we get to spend time with characters you just can't in a film. And I'm so curious about where they're going to keep going, because I didn't expect that weird torture device. And part of me thought, oh, we're testing out new techniques. Like, don't bring out a probe droid, please. You've done so well without doing references. Not the probe droid, you know, the one from episode 4, don't you? The torture droid. And it wasn't. It was a horrible brain thing. And I was like, this is excellent. Again, I've not got a problem with the odd tease here and there to other things, but if it had been something as obvious as that, it'd be like, ah. But it's not. And the way they shot the scene of Bix, the actress playing her as well, like the eyes, the screaming, it's just unbelievable. And I kind of know both your thoughts on that opening point.
So for me, one of my favorite parts of that is actually what happens just before, where it's like opening up the room. You've got this person sat there, bloody nose, blood dripping off everything. It's like, should we get him out of here? Go, no, leave him there. Then she gets brought in and goes, what are you doing? Let's get him out of here. Let's, you need to see this kind of thing. It's the psychological torture before the real torture begins, which is so nuanced and so well done. And then you get Dedra Midden, who's, she's become one of my favorite characters out of the show because she's so well played. And her ambition isn't outgrowing her station. Her ambition is just to do the best job she can. And part of that is she enjoys what she does. Torture is a horrible, horrible art form. And to some, it is that thing. It is an art form. She's taking pride in what she does. And the Doctor, he's so happy to talk about what he's discovered here. It's like, not only did we basically find this noise, when you distill it down, we found children. This is the bit that's going to get you. Oh, this is great. And you see Bix, and you see the whole. She's wrestling. She's like, no, I'm going to stand my ground here. And then the headphones get put on, and it's silent. And that's what's worse. I think that's what makes it better for the audience, and worse in a way to watch is you don't hear what she's hearing. So you have no idea. That headphones could be blasting Justin Bieber and torturing the hell out of her for all you know. And it's just painful. And the way, I can't remember the unfortunate name of the actress who plays Bix, but the way she has portrayed that is incredible, because later on, by the time you get back, she's broken. You can see she's broken. You don't have to hear, you don't have the questions, you don't have to have, don't get it wrong, the torture droid, actually I was expecting, I thought it might have been a prototype maybe, I was looking forward to that as an Easter egg. But it didn't need to happen. It's reminiscent of episode 5, where Vader tortures Han just because he wants to see if the machine works. And Han goes, they didn't even ask me any questions. He doesn't understand why he's being tortured. That is a softer version of what you get here, which is very much I will get my answers, and you got to do this the nice way, or you can do this the hard way. But I'm not really going to give you the nice option. I know you're not going to say anything, so I'm just going to stick the headphones on you. And she reminds her beforehand, it's like your friends, your co-workers, people you know and care about have suffered and will continue to suffer. And it can all go away, carrot and stick. And then it's, as I was saying earlier, this is the Empire how it should be. And I mean this no way disrespecting anything that's come before it, but the Empire and the First Order are fascists. They are dictators. They are horrible, horrible people. And when you go into the comics and the books, you can get a bit more of a flavor because you can get away with some of it. This is the adult version of Star Wars in terms of Resistance. The TV show, for example, is very much aimed at a younger audience, and it is fun to watch. It's not great. It's not even that good. There's some bits I like, but it's okay on the whole. This is fantastic. This is aimed at us. This is aimed at the older fan. This is not fan service. This is just aimed at. It's not nostalgia. It's just aimed at. Yeah, exactly. And the actress, I can't remember her name, who plays Dedra Midden in this, has done so well, so fantastic that you can see the very sick pleasure she gets out of it, and then leaves the Doctor to it, and it's spine chilling. And you don't expect this from Star Wars. This is, as we talked about quite a lot on the show, I'd actually be interested to see if you agree, Sam. This is that very much British TV drama, that late night BBC One British drama that you don't really see anywhere else in the world. That gritty, same as for the Scandinavian dramas as well. That very gritty, very realistic point of view, and it's left. I mean, it's a far cry from lightsabers and blasters. This is just real, and it is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly bring up a comment by Lucas. It's, hey guys, I've been in for a while. Lovely to see you back, my friend. It's been a while. I'm loving Andor so much. It's refreshing to have a super grounded, great Star Wars story. This is the type of thing I've been waiting for out of Star Wars. And this is kind of it. Grounded is a great term, and so is gritty. And I think it's all in line with Rogue One. And it's going to be so interesting when all this is said and done, just how different this series is going to look, and also the effect this series could have on other Star Wars things other than Rogue One. That's a very different discussion. But yeah, Sam, quickly, your thoughts on the sort of the opening stuff, the torture stuff, and maybe, yeah, I guess the sort of the mature level and the audience this is aimed at.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just in reference to that comment, I think a lot of people going into this show and to many things and just in general would think, how can you ground something like Star Wars, which is so fantastical? And I think this is one way, and what I believe is a good way of doing it. I think firstly, and talk about the ISB really quickly, I think what's been great about this particular part of the story is that we get a peek behind the curtain over something that we don't tend to see, because basically it's either we get the normal troopers, or we get a general, or we get a Sith Lord. It's very much, we get those types of things all the time. We don't get to see the different parts of that about what makes the Empire such a threat. And this is just one part of that. And so I think seeing all of what is it Dedramiro, like what she's done, and it's awful because I found myself rooting for her when she just wanted to get to work. She wanted to do it. She knew something was up. I was rooting for her, and I probably still am a little bit, but now after this episode I'm like, oh, you actually a terrible person, which we already knew anyway. But yeah, I think I kind of love that Bix really tried, and I think, you know, there was definite reflections of A New Hope there. I think going into that torch scene, you kind of felt that, and then you don't think about it because of the way that it's panning out is not that at all. It's not that, and it's not Han's torch. This is very different, and it makes you feel uncomfortable. And I think so. And the Dr. Gorst, I love the guy who played him, because he played it with such, I don't know, with
enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm is the right word, yeah.
With a weird sense of humor with the whole thing, which is really weird based on on the dialogue. But I have to give it up for the writing, which I think has been pretty consistent throughout the whole series so far. But just, I think it works much better when you have actors who can utilize that dialogue and actually portray it effectively. And I think it goes with what you were saying, Phil, about the British elements. And I know we've mentioned this before, we'll probably will mention it again, but having so many, you know, British cast members and having it, you know, filmed here, I think really benefits this series. And there's so much talent that it's just wonderful to see it on screen. But yeah, the actual torture, it's uncomfortable. It's you kind of want to know what happens, and I know there's going to be so many edits of the headphones being put on and something being played over it. I know that's going to happen, but you're right. It's to not hear it is worse, because you can't imagine the sounds that she's hearing, what is going through. The fact that it made, and I can't remember the guy's name before her. I presume he had to wear those as well. And it just, it's awful. It's absolutely horrendous. And to have that in a show like this for a Star Wars show I think is pretty insane. But I really do thank them for actually going this extra mile and doing it in as realistic way as possible within this universe, and to not have it just be physical violence or the use of a blaster or any form of torture that we would probably think of, all that droid from episode 4. And finally, just to have that, you know, reminiscent, which I saw everyone going about with that shot that's so similar to the ending of Leia's torture with the door closed and walking past it. I thought that was such a lovely touch. It was so, for everyone who knows, and everyone's seen episode 4, everyone who gets that connection, it's great. But even then, just as a way to end that, but get that bit more to hear her screams, to see her going through it and leave it is terrible. It's awful, and you don't want her to go through it. And you know, I'm worried for this character. I'm worried for all the characters on that planet. To be honest, I think the end of this season, I think it could go horribly wrong for all of them. But I think it works very, very well, and I think as a way to open us up again to that story is just excellent.
No, very well said. I'm just going to bring up a few more comments. So Lucas mentioned it's nice nostalgia that requires attention of an adult. This is my problem, not problem. Great thing, but I'm watching like, no, George, put the fucking phone down. Like, concentrate, because you can't afford to not listen in this show. And this is why I wish this was at cinema as well. Could you imagine if they played each of these arcs at the cinema? Would be amazing. This makes the Empire feel more insidious. The First Order needed this. I never found the First Order intimidating the way the Empire feels even more. I'm kind of with you both. The torch scene, I think, not to detract, but the only time I ever felt the Force First Order was not necessarily threatening, but children were scared of Kylo Ren. I remember one screening of Force Awakens ruined by some child crying loads, and it was the mind thing on Poe, which that's more down to great acting out of Oscar Isaac. But again, they had the whole thing, the screaming, door shuts, Hux walks past, and I don't think we ever got too much of that intimidation fear type thing, especially when they're meant to be the leaders of the galaxy. But yes, that's. I'll try and avoid bringing up the sequels too much for this. And Dave put the Torture. I thought they might put it back on a Lobot. And the performances are all so strong. And this is it. I can't fault a single performer on this series. Every role seems to have been cast. Even the second Doctor on today's episode, aka Mr. James Potter, who we haven't seen in 10 years. Okay, not the actor, but I mean his character. That was correct. Harry Potter's dad was in this episode, playing the guy at the end.
Oh my god!
Me, I can see your eyes going. It is him. I'm not lying.
So I am gonna look. Like, I'm gonna listen and look though. Like,
but this is where it kind of goes to, and sort of moving on from the torture stuff. If we move into sort of the ISP stuff with Cyril as well, I just love to see that operational day to day. Like, I don't want to show like The Office, but I would pay a lot of money just to like have Tony Gilroy just continue writing scenes. And one of the things that got me more than anything is when they spoke about they found one of the stolen objects today, and it's like, oh yeah, but this guy comes from this planet, and we've got to make it like an accident. No, we can't make it like too much of an accident. And I loved this conversation they had, and it's just like quick problem solving. And it's so terrifying. And I don't want to get sort of contextual with now in modern day politics, but it's safe to say that our country, many countries aren't functioning well, but certainly our country political spectrum is an absolute embarrassment at times. And I've also been watching, I'm allowed to say this because in Bargains, but I've been watching the FIFA corruption documentary, which comes out next Wednesday, which is some of the best TV of the year I've watched as well. And I'm 3 episodes in, so I'm very much on this mental corruption, psychological mind point at the moment. Having this today was just this like extra ball of fun, and it takes me the writing of this, and it's not because it's just come out House of Dragon, but I have like Game of Thrones level vibes where I'm enjoying dialogue. I'm just enjoying listening to characters, even if it could have took 20 seconds to have done that scene for plots. I'm enjoying a 5-minute drawn out conversation between them because you learn about the characters, you learn how they operate, and one of the incredible things with Dedra Meero in this, Denise Goff that plays her, she did an interview recently where she spoke that one of the highlights is that she's not a female character that comes on board and you align for being a female or anything in that respect. She says that you bring on board this person that stands out for being a woman at the beginning, but then ultimately she is a fascist like the rest of them, and she is the worst of them in that sense of being the best. And it's a really interesting sort of approach. I'm not getting into any like gender.
She is everything to me that I thought Gwendolyn Christie bringing Captain Phasma could have been. Phasma is my least favorite character in Star Wars for so many reasons, and this is just proving why.
So, something I've seen on Twitter, a few good things on Twitter this week, not Elon Musk. People are saying that they were asking the question, who has been the most intimidating Imperial officer since Grand Moff Tarkin, which we're going back to 1977. And loads of people are starting to talk about Dedra Meero already. And I think there's good reason. They're like, I wouldn't want her trying to like, if I'd committed a crime, I wouldn't want her investigating. Like, she'll have like my, throat slit open.
Well, I mean, she's proving how competent she is, and we're seeing it, and it's not through anyone else's actions or words. It's through her own mindset, what she's doing. She's making the calls and the decisions, which had she not done that, a lot of the stuff that's going on in the series wouldn't happen. But she has done it, and now things are rolling. Like, we've mentioned the Game of Thrones connections before, and you've just mentioned it now. Like, again, with the torch scene, I kind of felt the vibe of Cersei Lannister with the scepter after that, and just kind of the vibe of the power there, and just kind of what again, the preconception of, Cersei as a female character, no, she's bad, but, she's not the worst, to her really being one of, if not the worst, people to be around, to be alive in this world. And I feel like we're only going to see Miro do more of that, and to make her seem more evil, but it's going to come from her actually putting the work in. So you can't fault her for that. So I could definitely see her being one of the most iconic characters from the show. I mean, she already kind of is.
Yeah, and I think as well with this show is, the big question mark is how long are they going to be in it? We know we get 2 seasons, and I know the Game of Thrones comparison that I'm not bothered about shock value in the sense of I don't want people just to die every week. It's great if they would, but I think this show has surprises in store. The fact Andy Serkis pops up is one of the biggest surprises of the entire show still, and I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that Andy Serkis popped up in this and is playing a role, not a cameo, a role. Lucas, again, thank you. I've been thinking about this whole show. This is the Game of Thrones, the Star Wars universe. The dialogue seems interesting. That's probably the key word, interesting, because again, there's so much care. And when I was at that Rogue One Q&A with Diego Luna and Jenny Beaver Riley, Diego Luna spoke a lot. Sorry if you've probably already heard this. Diego Luna spoke a lot about the writing, that when Tony Gore would write scenes, he would have the set in mind. And he would have to write the scenes with concept art to picture how he wants to write the characters, how they will operate, how they will move. And then when it came down to filming, he would then go to the constructed sets and then revisit his script to see if anything's changed and anything he wants to reevaluate based on the sets they'd built. And I think that's what's so important to a series like this, is the set designs. We spoke about the prison, we've got the ISB building, even the Coruscant housing blocks, the conversation with Cyril and his mother just on a table. There's sort of precision writing there. And I don't want to say Star Wars has never had this, because again, it's not a competition, but what Star Wars is doing is it's a new era in the sense of we aren't making this for children. We aren't, as you said earlier, Phil, very well, Resistance. Resistance is a kid's show. We haven't had a Star Wars series that is primarily for mature adult audiences. And when I say mature adult audiences, it doesn't need to be nudity. It doesn't need to be extreme violence. It doesn't need to be swearing. I know we had it once or twice, actually. I've said that in this. But it's very much from the mindset of this is an espionage series about a dictatorship, fascist, thing ruling the galaxy. It isn't going to be hunky-dory for these characters getting by. And again, film, you can't do that. You can't build up to something as big as Star Wars, by the way, with that. But it's great that we're at a point where Lucasfilm can go in, select an era, select characters, and build stories around them that this is doing. And talking Cyril, sorry, because I forgot about him, the legends. We've got to talk about this scene because, okay, so I was in the office today, and I'm not going to watch this on my lunch break. I'm not being snobby. I don't want to watch it on my work desktop. I want to watch it at home with my setup and my sound. So that's my snob thing out of the way for today. But I had seen a lot of people talking about Cyril, and they were like, Cyril's unhinged. Someone's put Cyril's like all the weirdos I know. And I was like, what is one of my favorite weirdo Star Wars characters up to this week? I love the fact his mom's stealing from him, which is unbelievably excellent. But the creepy scene of Dedra Miro, where I think someone compared him saying Cyril really is Anakin Skywalker. I'm trying to take in the concept that is it the first time we've had stalking in Star Wars? Like we saw a toilet for the first time today. I've spoken about seeing kettles and cups of tea, which I love. Didn't expect
it's
a toilet.
The bog for the first time in Mando, but this is the first time we had a stalker, and it's a bit on the nose. It's a bit too real, I think.
It's very real. But what I don't want to say I love about it, but it's quite eye-opening that we've seen this character is obsessed with Andor. And I don't want to say I like the way he stalks, that sounds horrific. It's still, as wrong as it is, it still feels in character that he would go and wait for her to finish her shifts. Is that weird of me to say? It's so odd. And obviously grabbing the arm, the close-up of the shot of the arm as well. There's something about him, and we're 9 episodes in now, and he feels like a ticking time bomb. That at some point, this guy is going to get his wish. Okay, I lied about the first toilet in Star Wars. Wasn't that in episode 3 when Obi-Wan force shuts the door on Padme's ship? But it's... What do we think? It's hard to talk about that scene because it's so new and raw to Star Wars, but I feel it fits in with his character, and I certainly think at some point him and Dedra's going to team up. Someone did a great tweet, called it "The Fault in Our Death Star," saying it could be a new rom-com.
Oh my god!
But I just think there's a bigger game in play with him. I don't know what it is, and I can't wait to find out. Phil, I know you weren't his biggest fan from the get-go, so I'm curious to know your thoughts on him this week.
I'm still not as big a fan of. I dislike him even more now. Hate's a strong word. Still dislike him. I empathize with the whole bit with his mum. That's kind of a funny real world Sopranos situation, as I mentioned before. The stalking, though, I think is a step too far. I don't think it's necessary. Don't get me wrong. I think if he had been badgering the office, like if he had been in the reception, for example, and she's like, "What are you doing here again?" I appreciate your enthusiasm for the Empire and your enthusiasm for our work here, but yeah, I've helped you out by giving you a clean slate. We're doing what we can to get him. Go back to your job. That would have been fine. Actual stalking, I think, is a little. It just didn't feel right for Star Wars. Don't get me wrong, we're talking about new, unbroken ground here for Star Wars in terms of the more mature themes. I just felt that was a little bit too far. Maybe that's speaking from personal experiences and real world situations. I just felt that's a little too uncomfortable for me.
That's fair, Sam.
I saw the scene and I was like, what's going on here? What's happening? I did feel uncomfortable, and I was like, I don't understand. As the days gone on, I kind of obviously I don't agree with it in principle, in concept, but in terms of this character within this show, I see it and I go, do you know what? You are going a certain way. I could believe that you would do this. And I'm kind of okay with it because I don't like this character. And if I don't like this character, then I'm fine with not liking him and his decisions, which includes this. And, I feel like I need a button for every time I feel it, I think in my head, and I'm going to bring it back. It's make the galaxy great again, because I get the MAGA vibes so much from this guy. And it's very much like, and it's much like our government. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm going to blame someone else, and I'm going to put this on them, and we need to sort this out. And, you are part of this, so I'm going to latch onto you as much as possible. So for me, because she warned him about not wasting time and not doing these things previously, now it's like, okay, well, he can't use the official channels. He needs to do it his own way, and his only way of knowing is through her, because he knows that she's working on the case. So I get why he's doing it. It's still so creepy, so wrong. So the fact that she controlled herself so well, I was surprised about, because I thought she absolutely has the authority to get rid of this person, to either put him away, to have him killed, whatever. He's done more than enough to warrant that. But it's so interesting to see the downfall of this character who maybe was teetering anyway prior to everything. He was not the most confident. And again, I'm seeing this similarity of they've got a platform, they're going to use it as much as possible, which is like real life. You have people who maybe aren't very important to get a sense of, oh, I should be doing this, or this should be happening, and I'll be part of the pack to do this. And then maybe it's gone farther than him trying to, get justice for the two men that were killed at the beginning of the season. And it's evolved into something way more twisted and not heroic, which I thought was what his original intentions were going to be. It's very interesting to see how it's going to go. And, I know there was conversation about how this character would develop, what would go on, but I think there's no coming back. I don't think he will come back from this. I'm excited, but kind of terrified about what he's going to do next. But yeah, I think every time I see him now, it will be make the galaxy great again. I know we had it with that guy from the first arc, but with him, I get that vibe, and it's not one that I want, but it's for a TV show. It's interesting.
And as you said, there's nothing wrong with the MAGA comparison, especially on this channel. And I think as well, it's very not real, but Star Wars has always been political. Star Wars has always been based off real stuff. George Lucas did put it in your faces. People chose not to believe it. The Ewoks are the Viet Cong. The Empire was the American government with Nixon. George Lucas has never hidden that. In fact, if you're curious, go look at his interviews with James Cameron when they both discuss the politics of Avatar and Star Wars. It's actually really fascinating. But just moving on from that quickly, got Lucas. I get what you mean. The story comes weird and strange, but a fresh new way of Star Wars. It fit his character. Interesting where it goes because that guy's a loose cannon. Dave loved the Stalker. He's desperate to be part of it all. Yep, there's that as well. It's a perfect part of what his character is capable of. With just the service of him, more creepiness to come. And he's getting under Dedra's skin. If she doesn't have the ISB, it might be literally. And that's it. He just wants to be a part of it. And,
I really agree with everything that Sam said. I agree with the comments I was reading as they were popping up. My only thing is that, literally speaking, just from my own personal view, I found it. That's my own uncomfortableness. However, how refreshing is it to have that in Star Wars to make you think and make you feel that? It is so good, and writing is so well done for that. So I can really appreciate it. It gets under my skin in that way, and it's fantastic that that's been able to be achieved.
The way I'm feeling with him is that come the season finale, maybe the final scene of the season 1, I think we're going to get him in the white uniform. And that's what I think is going to be a very big selling point. Not selling point, but there's certain characters out. Have you both seen the new Batman film, or does no one care about it? I know it's out for a few months now. I don't want to drop a spoiler.
I do want to watch it at some point, but it's just not.
I'll never watch it. So
it's fine. It's not a spoiler, but it's like the show ends with the Penguin, the film ends with the Penguin ready to be the next big gangster of the city. And I feel that's how Cyril's going. But again, time will tell. And I love his relationship with his mom, just because I forgot the actress name, but she's a legend of theatre. And that is such
she's hilarious. She's hilarious. She's excellent. And I get again from how this character is formed, how Cyril's formed, like his frustration with his life, his dead end job, he has to live with his mom. I get like the seeds are kind of there for him. And obviously not everyone who is in what they believe to be a dead-end job or living with their parents is not going to end up being a crazy, creepy stalker. That's not it at all. But as a stereotype, as one way, that can make sense along with everything else that's going on in his life and with his character in this story. So,
no, definitely. And in lighter terms, let's talk some Senate. So let's talk about Mon Mothma. We went to the Senate building and I was very excited. And you know what? I still love the fact we're going, even if it's for a couple of seconds, if it's for one scene, people disagreeing with her. I like the fact we're there still, because it's a nice location of them being in her amazing penthouse, which looks phenomenal. I'm going to add. But I'd love in today's episode, at least, we had probably one of the biggest realizations is that her cousin is in fact, I forgot the character's name, which is really embarrassing. Val. Val is the cousin of Mon Mothma. Whether cousin's a literal term, I feel it is blood cousin at this point in time. But I love the fact that, we spoke a couple of weeks ago that we saw her in episode 7. She was all dressed up. She was in cars and she was looking great. In the sense of, she wasn't actually from that planet. And we're getting to see her split persona. Well, not split persona, but she's a rebel and she's very upfront in it. And it's not a plot twist. It shouldn't be this. And I love the fact that the approach this is, this character is this person. It's not a big deal. It's her character. And to me now, there's this immersive tension that she is between Luthen and Mothma, which makes her vulnerable to storytelling in a very interesting way. And Mon Mothma, we know the end goal of Mon Mothma. We see episode 6. She is the politician at the front of the rebellion. We know where she goes afterwards, that she becomes not the senator, but the chancellor of the Republic. And it's really interesting for their story purpose with this, that it doesn't follow the deleted scene of episode 3 where it says we're a rebellion. We're seeing her edging towards what we know is her future, and it's still quite grey that she doesn't know what is the correct choice. She doesn't know what to do. And I love the fact that we had very limited scenes with her, but I still see the character that is going to go on to be, and I see her struggles at the moment. And I'm just in this very precarious space where we might not get too much for next week, but I certainly think the final 2 episodes, I think, are going to be very centric on her relationship. Again, more comments from the daughter this week, in the sense of, the daughter saying, well, this was your ex-boyfriend, and she doesn't really understand why. There's obviously the family divide. And I still think, again, not to do theories too much because I've enjoyed not doing them in the series, but that family's in trouble. There's only going to be one survivor out of them three. It's going to be Mon Mothma. And I think this could be a massive story point at some point in the series. Oh, have we got Phil?
Well, I don't know.
I think we've lost Phil. In the meantime, Sam, thoughts on Mon Mothma?
Well, I mean, I love her. If you didn't already know, I think that the Senate again was great to see. I love that we get a bit more. We hear a bit more from the others in the Senate. That you've got people agreeing with her, people not agreeing, but. Again, like real life, it reminds me of like a House of Commons, live thing where you see not many people are there, and yet there's someone speaking so passionately, and yet you get a sense of deflation because it just doesn't seem to be working. Nothing's actually happening, and like I could totally sense, frustration from her character that just things are not what they used to be. Like I imagined if Padme suddenly appeared, what she would think about a Senate like that. And it's just democracy not working. It's not happening. And that's just a real shame. To look at, Mon Mothma's, family, we've had her husband who just seems like a massive jackass, but clearly, they've grown apart. They've been together since they were teenagers, however long that's been, 20 plus years. It's a real shame. It's sad. However, he's not being truly supportive of her. Likewise, she's not loving what he's doing, and they're just kind of, doing what they can. Later is interesting because at the beginning of this, I wasn't aware that she was going to have a child, let alone one who was, a teenager. And I think that's an interesting thing to see how she is as a mother. But clearly, Lada's at a point in her life which, she's not really needing her. She's not really needing anyone. She's trying to, sort of that stuff out. But it's not. Luckily, we're not getting too much teenage drama, thankfully. But clearly she has a good relationship with Vel, and to have that realization of Vel is related to Mon Mothma, I think was again a really interesting touch, and not to have it be a whole big thing. I was very intrigued about Vel, more so when she was dressed up a couple of episodes before, and I love that we didn't know. I was like, okay, she's very good at what she's doing. But yeah, I love the tension there. I think, as I said earlier, the tension, in a lot of the scenes, to me, is one of the best parts of the show. And the Coruscant scenes probably had the most tension for me, because something could happen. And like you said, George, I think this family's not gonna keep together. Something's gonna happen. Again, I feel like that's a ticking bomb. And also, I love all the references to Chandrila and the guy played by Ben Miles, Tay. I love that we are seeing more about her. It's not just about this one thing. We're getting, context about what's happened in her life, her past, what's, her home planet, which at least in main series Star Wars, in terms of we've not heard much about Chandrila in, films and TV shows, but we have in the expanded universe stuff. So it's nice to get stuff put in here. And to just kind of her trying to use her connections, and she just seems so lost. And yeah, I think she has a lot of important stuff to do, and I just want to see how the writers are going to do it. Again, we're at that point in the season where we are getting towards the final episodes, and things are going to shift. And I really want to know which way it's going to go.
No, very well said. And Phil as well, if you're back with us. Thoughts on Mon Mothma and her story for this week, teeing up into next week?
Yeah, so I want to talk about the Senate, because the Senate is something that's been glossed over, that it feels useless. It's like it was described in episode 4, which is that last part of the Old Republic. It's that.
Oh no, have we lost Phil?
Yeah, I think he's gone again.
We've lost Phil again. Apologies, people.
No, he's back. He's back.
Yeah, I'm back. It's awful internet my end, and I don't know why it's doing this. No, so what I was saying is the Senate feels useless. It feels like it was described as episode 4, that whole last ditch part of the old republic. The old ways are gone. You can almost tell the senators are kind of seeing that this is just a front. The Empire will do as it wishes. This is just kind of keeping that illusion of democracy, of freedom going. And you can see Mon Mothma's frustration with it, which then spills over to home, where you then do find out more about her husband, where that relationship is just pretty much arranged marriage. We were 14, 15 when we came here. It's done through convenience and for power more than it is for anything else. And yeah, the fractious relationship she then has there, and then you bring in Vel, who, yes, you find it is her essentially a blood cousin. I don't think she knows. I don't think Mon Mothma knows that Vel was part of Eldani. I think that it's so many layers of, well, you're a rebel, I'm a rebel, but what kind of rebel are you? And it's that when you have Take-Oma come back as well, that whole, people are going to start noticing it's 400 grand that's gone missing. You're gonna need a loan, and she's like, "What kind of loan? It's gangsters, it's thugs, it's the nitty gritty, which you don't get in a film. It's only through long form TV that you can get these. It's a good book or a good comic. You can get these stories that can be laid out over time. You can get they're less Easter eggs, more references. And it's more plot points than it is just kind of happy little happenstance. It's fantastically done, and I do think the parts with Vel and Mon are fantastically well written. Genevieve O'Reilly, we've known for years. Vel, I can't remember the name of the actress who plays her, but they play off really well against each other, and their differences of opinion. We are part of the same team, but we don't know how much of a part you are. And I don't think the family are going to survive, especially the daughter. I think is going to be a chip for Mon Mothma's push towards the full rebel we know and love by the time you get to episode 6. I mean, last week is something I didn't, unfortunately, get on last week's show to talk about Saw Gerrera. And now to see that more extreme aspect of it. I mean, that's the only thing I was gutted about was Benthic Two Tubes and Saw Gerrera, his band of more extreme rebels. You can see he's not fully cyborg yet. The big hit's still to come. You get to Rebels. There's so much more to add to this. And this Mon Mothma isn't the Mon Mothma we get in Rebels just yet, but you can see all these bits being placed. And yeah, I thought it was absolutely fantastically done. But going back to what I was saying though, the Senate is the one thing we were talking about before the show started. It's one of the big bits, George, I know especially you're excited to see more of that. And if you don't like your politics of Star Wars, then unfortunately they're here to stay. This is built as part of the foundation of Star Wars. And this is the illusion of freedom, which, going back to Sam, what you're talking about with the MAGA movement and that whole vestige of power of you think you're a democracy, but you're not. Now, we're not going to get into the political climate of the world today. You talk about Brazil and everything else. There's so many unfortunate real-world plot lines that you can draw comparisons to this, but it's that sham power that the Senate still has, that illusion of freedom for some, that Mon Mothma can see through the veil, yet she's still trying because she's using that as her front for her activities. I thought it's subtle, but it's so well done.
No, it's exactly that, and it's hard to sort of follow up that sort of stuff. If I'm being honest, because it's rich of themes and ideologies of the series, and as you said right at the beginning, with the Senate, the fact that it's pointless because that's where it is that they live in a dictatorship. What is the point of trying to have democracy? And I love that shot of Mon Mothma where it's just her in the middle. They're starting to that with the Paddy McGuinness show. They're just turning with their lights off, aren't they? Like they're backing out. They're going to go home for their day, and it's so fascinating seeing what else might come from it and where her story points are going to go. And if we move into the headline, because we just hit the hour mark, I don't even mention Cassian. Let's talk some prison, because this is, dependent on how next week goes, this is already one of my favorite ever Star Wars locations. I can't quite put my finger on what it is. It's like this symmetry of the whole thing, right? It's 7 floors, 7 teams, 7 people per team, I think they said. And I love this weird OCD brainchild of the Empire for these prisons. And I don't know what they're making. That's really what I want to know. I know it looks like a cog; it could be anything, but I love the fact is that their life is covered through shifts. They're the day shift as well. We only ever see the night shifts when they're going out in the hallway to switch around. But everything we had in this episode here is great, and this is where it really hit me with Andy Serkis today. That listen, I'm a massive fan of his, and I have been for many, many years. You know, when I was younger, before I even knew what motion capture was, seeing him when he gets to, as you said, I feel Black Panther, like he gets to see him in his, I say human form, like he's some kind of alien. He's so famous for his motion capture roles, is so many people aren't familiar with his face, and the beauty of that is that this meant him getting a second role, not second cameo. His second role in Star Wars is gonna be hopefully a memorable one, and I loved everything about this week because I thought at some point he might betray them. He might be a villain. He might grass them all out to the guards. They're planning to escape. And he's kind of this victim of circumstance where he has nothing he can live for but the prospect of freedom. And for him, the only way he can be freed is that every single person stands in line. Every single person does their job. They do their job to a good level. They don't talk. They have to keep it stum. They can't have gossiping. It's this fascinating character development. And at no point did I think this guy is a human. He will betray them. And when we got to the death of the, oh dearie me, they kept saying his name today, and I feel really bad that I've forgotten it. Olaf. He has a name, and it was these moments. This is where we got peak Andy Serkis, that his character is human after all. That he does care. He does care about these people, and I think it's because. I should have naively thought Olaf would die, right? Because he's the old guy. He was the closest to freedom. That's kind of the obvious thing. He'd die a week ago, but I just never clicked it. Turns out as well, who hasn't known, let's go around the past weeks. He is the henchman in the 1989 Tim Burton Batman, who Michael Keaton says I'm Batman to right at the start. Same actor. So there's a lovely little bit of trivia for anyone curious. But his character arc fascinated me because it wasn't like, oh, he's had a stroke and died. We get to see this like really horrific decline across an episode. To the point where when the doctor comes in, who we'll speak about later, obviously we know something's happened in another block. We get the power going out. We get all this curious stuff. And again, it goes to the credits, the writing of this mature theme that they keep an enigma. We're not seeing Floor 2, that we're staying with the characters and we will only learn what they will learn together. And I think that's working wonders for this series, that we're not getting that third-party perspective on anything, which to me is very important for the show to function. Especially when the last line of the episode is, you know, there are always is it no more than 12 guards. You know, the fact that's the line to end the show and everyone's pumped up. It's not, you know, your typical let's break out of here. It's there are always 12 guards. Andy Serkis' allegiance is secure, and I think what was sort of harrowing is the revelation from the Doctor, aka Harry Potter's dad, because I just can't shake that image. You know, you finish your shift. You go to another room, and it's at that point I was like, "Oh my!" Like, not even like I thought it'd be something like they just kill them off when they get out. They think they're free, they just murder them. But the fact that that people were talking and people found that out, and they killed the entire 49 people for that floor? No, 98. They took out both shifts. They killed 100 people because they were talking. It is terrifying, and at the same time it's so enlightening because it's a new, I don't want to say new era Star Wars, but we're seeing something new within the Star Wars universe. And we spoke last week, I know you both went on about how it was so interesting that it's like the floor is lava. I think Dave put it mildly, that, you know, we know from the moment they step foot on this prison that your feet and, you know, the floor is the weapon. And it creates tension whenever anyone's doing anything, whenever anything happens, because we know at any point they could all die. And now we know there's going to be a prison breakout, and they know that everyone could die for speaking. I'm in this perplexed mind where, yes, this is the middle arc. We don't have ending scenarios. But I'm just sort of in love with it. I don't know why. Not that I want to be in the prison. Like, if I could pick any Star Wars set to visit, there'd be a lot of them. But this is one that immediately jumped in my head that I think what we get potentially next week will be potentially one of the greatest Star Wars story arcs we've ever had. You know, Phil, when we talk Clone Wars, right? You'll pick like Umbara. You know, some people are the Force one. Some people have many different arcs. I think Andor's heading that same direction. Yes, there's only 3, but I think the prison arc of Andor is going to be something people speak about for many years to come in Star Wars. But I've spoken a lot. I'm going to hand over to you two. Hopefully, you're a bit more concise than me. But how are we feeling with just this whole setup with Cassian in the prison?
Well, I mean, I think that to have the title of this episode be "Nobody's Listening," I think is great. Like, because Cassian is just so adamant that they don't care. They don't care that we're talking and whatever. Otherwise, they would do something. And the fact that these, tidbits of information is slowly coming out, and then to realize that, oh, they did talk and they all died. They all paid the price for it. That what you say does matter. It's good because it gives Cassian, what does he do now? There's one way you can talk to people and that's fine, but then how are you actually going to escape from this place? And to get Andy Serkis's character to see the fact that he's had so not much time in this show, and yet to see him go through so much development in such a short time, I think is testament to his acting and to the dialogue and just the scripts, because you see the cogs in his head. Much like the ones that they're working on, but that what you see him slowly realize, but still with the hope that, oh, if I do this as I'm being told to do, as I need to do, it's going to work out. But to the point where until he knows for sure this is not going to work out for me, no matter what I'm doing, no matter how good I'm being, no matter how right I'm being, which is why that last line hits so well, because you don't need anything more than that. You don't need to be any more explicit than that. He's answering the question that Cassian's wanted the answer to, and that's it. And so I think that's just an excellent thing to do. The whole setting, I think, is so strange, and maybe for some people not super Star Wars. But I think the THX references and just that this whole, it doesn't have to be a dirty prison where they're locked in. It's using the Empire is known for using anyone for manual labor. It's interesting to know what they're making. It could be parts for the Death Star. I don't know. It could be anything. I'm going to presume it's not something so on the nose as that. Excuse me, but yeah, I love what I enjoy as well is that I love these supporting characters. I don't know all their names, but they all just seem so nice. I don't feel like any of the people that Cassian is spoken to are true criminals, and I think that's again another scary thing. We know that Cassian was arrested for something that he didn't do. The amount of people who were falsely imprisoned, and we know there's hundreds of people there, thousands in this one complex alone. It's the fear of the Empire, but in such a different way from the interrogation scene at the beginning. And yeah, one thing I did notice is that, and again, I wasn't on recently, but Gembok is played by Brian Bevell, who was in Hollyoaks, and he was in it when I was watching it. So it was just, I've not seen this guy for like 12 years. And he was great in that. And he's great in this as well. And, I hope he doesn't die in this, but I don't know, but we'll see. And then also just the fact that we do get that Melshi guy. I had no idea it was him until, again, I saw people talk about it and I was like, oh my God. And I think that's such a nice touch. And it's also awful because he also, dies on Scarif. So we know where he's heading, but it'll be good to see how he weaves into this story, if he'll weave in and out, if he's kind of going to be a person who's kind of a constant in this. But no, I mean, this whole prison storyline has just been excellent. And it's going to be sad to see it end, but also I am just like, Cassian, get out of there.
Yeah. Phil?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and it's fantastic. Star Wars does Prison Break, but in the real sense. And what we haven't talked about here, though, is that whole carrot and stick again. It's yes, Andy Serkis' character wants to get out, but at that same point, he's like, right, look, whichever table does the best, you're getting your awards. If you don't, you're going to do badly. We do better than the other rooms, better than the other shifts. You're under my control. Whilst you're under my boot, you will do as I say, because he actually has the best interest for everybody, not just himself. He wants the entire room to actually get through their sentence as quickly and as painlessly as possible. And the best way to do that is to knuckle down and work hard. It is the genius behind, unfortunately, a lot of suffering in the world is to survive is to do the thing you don't want to do most because it's better than the alternative. And that's the Empire's trick here is to go, look, we need this stuff built. We know, like, for example, in Rebels, where Grand Admiral Thrawn goes to the factory, goes, these speeder bikes have a problem. You there, hop on that one, test it, push it to the max, and I'm going to kill him in front of the rest of you to prove a point. I don't want any more accidents. This isn't going to work. And it's that same point here. And when you find out that whole, so someone went from floor 17 to floor 2, and then the entire floor got wiped out for that, it is terrifying. And the bit we haven't talked about is the euthanasia. The doctor didn't even bother to try and cure him. It was a case of just straight, I need a bag and a cart. Straight up, that's all he says is bag and a cart until he kind of realizes. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there's nothing they could have done for him. And in fact, he's trying to be as kind as he can. But by the same point, he doesn't know that as soon as he gets there. It's just immediately bag, cart, come on, let's get on with this and get it over. And it's terrifying.
It's like he knows. He's probably done that 100 times. And one of the things that sort of hit me before they even went for it was they kept telling him the name. And he's sort of in that vibe like, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, which to me implies I've done this hundreds of times. And, I won't be... There's a really good analogy, I think, when people get fish, sometimes, like, they wouldn't... I don't know where you buy fish from, like, shops or whatever, but sometimes they say not to name your fish because you're going to go through so many. And it's kind of that logic there is it's almost like don't get attached. And I think what's so great about that scene is... I'm just going to keep calling him James Potter, the Doctor, but he is scared. And he's trying to be kind at the same time, which makes it, as you said, Phil, terrifying. And that guard who's like, why do you two need to be there too? And the Doctor sort of crapping himself. And I think this is such a great moment for Andy Serkis that he has this look, and it's a look of his we've not seen since Planet of the Apes, which is a testament to how amazing he is in that series. Where we see, before he even says the great line, we see him turn to the rebellion. We see it in his face that this is a man, because he just says and then his sort of voice drops, like he's got his very stern accent for most of it. As like, he'll be all right. He'll be there in a couple of days, and you can see the quiver and the fear in his voice of him realizing that he might not pull through, and why are they doing what they're going to do to him? And it's quite horrifying. And it's this horrible dystopia. And again, like we don't often talk about dystopia within Star Wars, but here we are. And it's, and take your mind back to the very beginning of episode 8. There's like multiple sets of these prisons in the ocean. There was a load of them. And we're dealing with one shift on one floor of however many floors in however many prisons. That concept is horrific. And I'm just going to say a big thank you to Lucasfilm for letting this go ahead. This feels like the sort of idea that wouldn't be allowed, because there's maturity within maturity in Star Wars. But as you said, Phil, like the term euthanasia, has that ever been spoken about in a Star Wars thing? Like to even hear of that term in Star Wars is pretty mind-blowing. And here we were witnessing that right in front today. We've got Martin. He's a little bit behind the episodes, but the episodes all say the scene between Daegu and Finn shortly in the house is fantastic. Don't listen to the spoilers because we're an episode ahead of you, and it's bloody great, and I don't want to be rooting for you. But thank you for tuning in as always. But no,
I will say just about that whole last scene as well is that, I mean, I'm sure if that Doctor could do something, he would, but the Empire is not going to waste resources and time on anyone, no matter what it is. So better to just get rid. And that's not, again, it's not explicit, but from what we're seeing, you can make that assumption that is it. I mean, he's carrying a small bag. There's literally nothing in there that really could have done anything anyway. There's no, I think you even see when he opens it, there's not a lot in there.
There's just the euthanasia kit. That's what's terrifying.
And he's probably had it. He's probably done it thousands of times. And he said straight away, "Because I know what this is. He's had a stroke," and it's like he knows straight away. And it's that horrible line of, this will be peaceful compared to what might happen in a week. And it's like the Doctor knows what's happening too, and he is also afraid. And it's just, there's obviously some very, very real world comparisons within how this episode's been formatted with real life events from the 40s. I won't go into obvious ones, but the parallels are there for people to look into. And again, it's something I've just not expected from Star Wars. And I mean that as a complimentary matter. I'm not here to bash on other stuff. It's Gilroy's coming in with a vision for something we've never had in the show. And this would function if it wasn't Star Wars. This could be any sci-fi thing in the world. It doesn't need to be Star Wars. But the fact we're getting something like this with Star Wars branding, to me, is so impressive. And it's so exciting as a fan that we're in this new era. Me and Dave spoke a lot about last week just about the show as a whole. Now there's been loads of false reports about the views. The stupid journalist that did the first article saying it was being watched through, they never end up apologizing, admit he got all his data wrong, which is frustrating because you know all it takes is one idiot with a blue tick to get all the typical channels going on what's being viewed and what's not. But I appreciate this probably isn't a show being watched as many as Mandalorian or Kenobi, certainly. And to me, this is just this is like a new experience that every Wednesday I'm getting home like, what am I going to see this week? And I don't like theorizing, I don't like predicting, because this show's been such a wild adventure, and I'm kind of envious of people that haven't seen it yet and are going to get the chance to binge it, because again, Twitter has been relatively spoiler free today. Although I wasn't on it at 8. I saw a couple of tweets, but there wasn't the usual here's photos, here's story, here's clips. That hasn't happened for Andor. And it's almost as if, because this is a more mature show, the audience in turn are actually acting mature around it. Or those clout accounts just aren't doing it because it's probably going over their head.
I think it is that, because I mean, I don't see as much as I've seen in any other show, and I think all the other shows, the live action ones that have come out recently, all of them have either had key Star Wars characters, like legacy characters, and have such extreme massive moments, which I know we've all been hyped for and we've loved, and that's why people have been doing those screenshots and posting and whatnot. Whereas here, I see less about it, but the things I do is always so positive, and yet it's never in such detail unless I type in Andor interrogation and then things come up. I'm not going to see that just randomly on my Twitter unless someone just retweets it or whatever. So I love that, I feel like people are just a bit more respectful, and I think it's a testament to what the show is doing and the people who are actually watching it. But the fact I've seen very, very little negative things about this. I mean, some criticism about certain elements a bit more earlier on in the season, but especially these last 2 episodes, everything that I've seen, I've not seen anything bad. Which is really nice to see that, it's being appreciated for what it is.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm one person, but when I've seen it, I'm not sitting here tweeting, waxing lyrical. A lot of people are, it's great. But again, I feel like everyone's reacting differently. Like when Kenobi was on, I was buzzing, I was liking GIFs and memes, but they were always popping up. Whereas with this, I feel this sense of, I hope that people get the chance to enjoy it. And I feel like a lot, and I know a few people that dipped out, the first few weren't for them, which is fine. But where this is getting to the repertoire with it, I certainly think it is growing, and kind of talking about the other Star Wars series, like going into one by one, but without the success of them and their popularity on Disney Plus, we don't get Andor either. Mm-hmm. It all fits under the same bubble. Lucasfilm are going to be more experimental when they have the success to then get the backing for these shows. Like, yes, the Mandoverse is sort of going to self-fund itself moving forwards. Kenobi was always self-funded, but Andor's probably the riskiest project outside of Mando season 1 they've had to do, because Mandalorian laid the foundations that should you can do Star Wars on the small screen, that has to be at the top. And Andor's how about an espionage series about fascism? Okay, why not? And I hope we get more of that in this. And I don't want to speculate on the Acolyte. We know that's filming now. We know there's a lot of things in development. There's a lot of films in development too. I know that Tony Gilroy has obviously signed a deal with Lucasfilm that he'll be able to make a film in the future and he'll do more shows, which I'm just sat here thinking, give him a brown envelope of whatever he wants in it to do that. If we're going to get stuff to this level, I am all in for the Gilroy hype train. And yeah, It's a weird way to talk about the end of this episode. I'm going to kind of ask you both. Again, I sort of said I don't like theorizing, but it kind of does make sense. What do you think, just very quickly as we round up, is going to happen next week? Like, yeah, just going to put you both in the spot. What do you think could happen? And if I go first, Circus is going to die, and it's going to be bloody tragic and horrible. And I would love for him to have a long and happy life, but this is Star Wars. But I've got no idea how they're going to do the prison escape, and I feel in my head that this might be visually one of the best sequences that Star Wars has done since The Last Jedi as well.
I really don't know actually what's going to happen. I've thought about it in my head. I mean, obviously the escaping from prison is one thing, but in terms of how that's going to work, and if it's going to be one person, two people, more, the whole party, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go down. And I think that's what's interesting about another interesting thing about this show is that you can think about what could happen, but you really don't know how it's going to go down. You don't know what's going to actually happen, and I think that's the exciting element. So, I mean, that's gonna be the main storyline of the next episode. I'm sure there will be, Mon Mothma stuff, but I feel like she's in a bit of a predicament now, where she's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, she already was anyway, but now, with all this stuff, all this conversation about funds and trying to figure out who to trust, especially after her conversation with Vel, it's like even the people closest to her, she has no idea. So that will probably continue. But as you said, George, I think it'll be more episode 11 and 12 will be where she takes more of a standing point there. And then I think we may get more stuff of Miro, but I think it won't be as heavy as all this prison stuff. Not sure how much Cyril will get, but I'm pretty sure we'll get him as well. He's only going to continue to be creepy and weird. I'm kind of excited for it. But I don't know. This is the thing. I don't know, and I'm excited that I don't know. But yeah, move on to Phil. He'll say something much more eloquent than me.
To be fair, that's not a huge amount I can add to it. Next week's going to be Star Wars Does Prison Break. It's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think Andy Serkis is going to make it out of it. Melshi will make out of it, but I think he might be the only one. It might be one or two others. Maybe they get out. Because he's going to have to reach out to Luthen potentially to get out, and that's going to be that's your key points for then 11 and 12. 10 will be then right. They've escaped. Axis has been brought in. Let's get this debate set up with his mother. The finales will then be built up from that. So this will be Prison Break and set up for the episode after episode 10 that won't be filler. It'll be purely this is setting up for 11 and 12 key plot points, and then we'll finally get that finale, which I don't want this to end. This has been just so fantastically well written. So, I mean, it's to the point to kind of put a jokey point on it. This episode's been so good that George hasn't even bothered with Krennic Watch because there's been so much.
I didn't do it last week. Honestly, listen, it was great at the start, and then it was cringy at the start too. But it reached the cringe point of I'm not going to disrespect.
I love
this
it.
Incredible series.
Oh, I love it.
I'll play the sound effect. But honestly, if he does pop up, then it will be
Blind! Deploy the garrison!
Could be on that planet when they escape. Those alarms could go off.
Oh, those alarms will go off. It's the Imperial warning klaxon. In fact, it's my text message tone, just because it's.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, see, so okay, I have my phone on silent 24/7, right? Unless I'm in the car, because obviously I've got music. And when I get an alert to my phone, it syncs to my car, and I get the seismic charge anytime someone texts me. So I'll be driving, and obviously I'll be in the car with people like who don't know what the seismic charge is, and they just hear this noise like, "What's that?" And I was like, "It's my text tone." But listen, the Krennic stuff. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. We haven't had the Death Troopers yet. Like we know they're in the trailer. We know they're with Dedra. But you know what? I also think like, there we go.
Yep.
If Tony Gilroy gets to write a scene for Krennic, because they make a comment, don't they? Like, we need to speak to a military operational person. There's a hint. I'm not saying it's going to be. I'm not going to say it's going to be him. Well, this is it. I mean, there's a lot of Holby City alumni in this series, and Tarkin. You know, oh god, how I've forgotten his name. Is on the wall over there.
Well, Guy Henry.
Guy Henry, yes, who obviously motion captures him. I don't think they do Tarkin.
No, I don't.
Purely because I don't think Tony Gilroy would want a motion capture face on set because I don't think he'd care. I think he'd want someone in a suit, and I think we'll get Krennic. I think Krennic. If we're going to get anyone, it'll be Krennic, and it'll be the last couple of episodes, if that. But
yeah, I think if they were going to do a Tarkin, I think it would be next season, if anything. But even then,
yeah,
it depends on if there's any. Because to me, he's so aligned with the Death Star. I don't see him being, fundamental to this story or being a huge part. I feel like Krennic's got way more of a chance based on what.
No, I think for us, we've had Yularen. That's been our kind of like Easter egg character for that. Who's been because Yularen always has been the ISB. He's always been, even in the old EU that's now not canon. He was still the head of the ISB. So it's been good to bring him back into the fold that way and connect the dots between Clone Wars and Episode 4. It's been nice to see. Of course, he's appeared in Rebels and things as well. But so I don't think we'll get Krennic, but. My point behind all that was the fact that it's so well written, so well done that what starts out as a kind of a little bit of a joke is actually going, you know what, this isn't even relevant because we don't care if we get it or not. What we're getting is so much better than what you could have imagined anyway, and so different to what you
unless he pops up.
Unless he pops up, you know what I mean? Though it's that level of just. I'm excited to see it. I think for me, next week will be Prison Break. We know that. I think we might see. Cyril's either going to get completely and utterly. I think he'll either end up in the ISB or he'll get thrown into a hole somewhere. I think it's going to be one of the two.
My bet with Cyril, when Cassian breaks out and they find out this guy was Cassian all along, she's going to recruit him. She'll be like, okay, we need to get. Oh god, there's a line in a film. I think it's Batman Begins. It's probably insensitive now, but I don't want to say it. You know when Scarecrow takes the mask out when he's in the prison with Falcone? It's like, since when did the nut take over the nut house? And is that like, oh god, it was Cassian all along. Right, we're gonna have to get Cyril in now. Let's bring in the absolute psycho that will be able to track him down and get him.
I mean, I really don't believe if he is brought onto the ISB. I really don't believe it will be a legitimate thing. I think it would be more of a case of she will use him. And he will go off and he'll be part of that whole bait. He'll be part of a trap. And she doesn't care if he makes out or not. I think that's the only way he's legitimately going to be part of this thing, because I think he's way too much of a flight risk. She knows that. I mean, there's no way that after everything that he's done, that she would be like, oh yeah, he's definitely going to be one to be part of this. I think he's way too extreme and it doesn't fit. But yeah, I think that's actually what I think is going to happen with his character. And I think he could go by the end of the season.
How great, though, to build him up for 9 episodes. And this is proper that Game of Thrones as Super Tournament, right? You build someone up, you give them proper development, and then you just...
Red Wedding them.
Yeah, and I think for and how great would that look for Dedra as I am the fucking villain of this story, not him. And there's so much potential here. And this is why I'm excited, because I think Tony Gilroy really knows what he's doing, and I'm really excited to see what it is. And kind of with that, it's got to take us into final thoughts, because we've been having an amazing time, but we're almost an hour and a half in. So if I'm going to head into final thoughts on this episode, I think, listen, as I said every week, it's hard just to keep hyping it, because it's just it's at a new level of, I'm not going to keep using new words, but this is a prestige TV series, and episode after episode for me, it's delivering. Surpassed any expectations I once had for the show. And I had actually quite high expectations for this before it began. And I just can't wait for next week. I'm in the office, which is a shame. And this was the 1 week that it was at 7 a.m. UK time because of the daylight change.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
I watched on my lunch.
Well, this is it. I really want to watch on my lunch. I was like, no, not on a laptop. Someone's going to speak to me and I'm just going to pull this face of, I won't get into that. But, yeah, sorry, Sam, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. It's great. I really don't want to be repetitive, but I feel like that's just what's happening. If I had been on every week, I feel like I probably 50% of what I would say would be the same, I guess, apart from the individual story beats that go on. But no, it's the way this narrative is structured, what's going on, the fact that there's so many enjoyable characters is a joy. You know, even the ones that I don't like, I don't want to get rid of. And I think that's a testament of a good character if you don't like them but you want to see more of them. And I'm ready for more. I'm not ready for it to end yet, and I'm glad that we do have these 12 episodes for this season. But yeah, it's going to be a shame when it does go for a while. But I mean, it'll be great. It will be great to binge this whole thing, I think. And yeah, let's hope we have a fantastic Prison Break. Maybe someone from the actual show Prison Break will make a reference. We'll be there. I don't know, but one can dream. Wentworth Miller, that's what he's called, isn't it? He's the guy from Prison Break. Get him in there.
Yeah, and I think I've said pretty much what I need to say on this episode. I think it's fantastically well done, and I'm just very much looking forward to see what's next. The only thing that I disagree with is I cannot wait for Cyril to be off because I'm just not.
Fair.
No, and so that, and maybe he will. I know you'll relish the day when it does happen, and it will. If not in season 1, he won't be here at the end of season 2. So that's a mega one there. But
season 2, episode 1. It feels like, oh no, another season, and then he's the shock death in the first 10 minutes.
There we go, done. Yeah,
off by Ben Mendelsohn. I'm back.
Yep.
But that is going to do it for today's video. So thank you again to everyone that's been commenting on the stream. It's been great to get your thoughts on the show so far. Do come back next week. If you like this video, please do consider hitting that subscribe button. We're going to be live each Wednesday, 9 o'clock, the usual time. There's only a couple of episodes left of season 1, and then it's quiet for a few weeks. I'm not going to be doing Willow weekly. I actually really want to watch it, but it's going to be nice to have a break in December. There's a lot of things happening on the channel at the moment, and some nice earned rest is going to be one as we head into January and into Oscar season. So if you have enjoyed this video, maybe hit the like button, maybe share it. If you know some Stars fans that you think might have enjoyed this discussion, don't hesitate in sending it their way. And if you want to find out about more of our videos, what else is coming up, we tend to announce all on our social medias. I mentioned the FIFA scandal documentary. That'll be the next review coming out on Friday. Twitter and Instagram is where we tend to announce stuff alongside Facebook Letterboxd. You can grab all of those links in the description, alongside getting some merch. And another big series we're starting to wrap up. Ironically, it's going to end the day before the Andor finale, which is definitely not what I expected at the start of the year. The Steven Spielberg retrospective, we have 2 more film reviews, followed by a top 10 ranking video. Ready Player One is coming on Tuesday, the 8th of November. Busy few weeks ahead. Then there's a World Cup on. And a lot of other things. So thank you for both of you for taking time out of your day to join me tonight. Delighted to get you both back on. Dave, thank you for watching at home. I'll drop you a message as well if you're still watching. And yeah, that's going to do it for today. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
See you there.